Hello everyone, I'm Ezekiah and welcome to Aesop Art University. So today I have a very short and simple tutorial for us today, especially for beginners. And the reason why I'm making this tutorial, even though I've made similar tutorial to this before, the reason why I'm making this kind of tutorial is because I still get questions from beginners on my social media asking how I do make my shading look so smooth and realistic. And for this specific tutorial, I'm going to be using something that we all can easily resonate with, something very simple and something we can practice on without having to face any difficulty while doing our shading process. So today we are going to use the object, this cone object, but it's not fully a cone. It's a cone with a little keyboard on top of it, and I will show you the reference on your screen right now, and that's what we are going to use for this tutorial today. And before we get started, I would like to talk about the materials needed for this kind of tutorial, and it's something very simple. You don't need to break the bank to get this kind of materials. The first we are going to need is a sketchbook. This is an acid-free sketchbook which is very good for pen shading. It is not completely white, it's a little bit toned, like a very light brown. It's not that white. The reason why I'm suggesting this sketch pad is because it can handle a lot of pressure when it comes to shading with a pen compared to other cheap quality papers. So I recommend you get a sketchbook like this for your practical. And for our sketching, I have two pencils here with me. You can either use should be an HB pencil. You can use this, and this is a mechanical pencil. You can use any of this pencil for your sketching rather than going directly with your pen if you know that you are not good with your proportion. And moving on to the most important tool we are going to use for this tutorial is our ballpoint pen. Now this is BIC Cristal Ballpoint Pen. This is the pen I love using the most. Most beginners have asked me that is it compulsory to use BIC ballpoint pen, and I do tell them that it depends on your skill and how you can master with the pen you are using. So if you are comfortable with ballpoint pen, fine, you can go ahead with it. If you are comfortable with the tiny tip pen that is common in our society now, you can go with it. As far as both give you similar results, then there is no problem. And to get this big pen, this exact model, you can check the link in the description box. I placed a link there where you can buy yours at a very affordable price. So without wasting much of our time, let's get straight into today's video. If you are a beginner watching this video for the first time, or you are an existing audience, I would like for you to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials like this. So for example, you are a beginner and you do start your drawing with a very harsh outline with no proportion, no measurements, just going straight with a pen and just make any sketch that you feel like making it look like the reference. Well, if you start your sketching this way, you are going to make a lot of mistakes, and it's going to be very difficult for you to have that desired result you always wanted in the first place. So if you make your sketch this way as a beginner, then you are doing it very wrong. Everything from this sketch, from the sketching to the shading, it is all wrong. And then that is the reason for the video tutorial today. I'm going to show you the best way to sketch your object, the shading procedure to follow, and every other thing you have to do in order to have a very good shading and a well balanced drawing at the end. I'll be starting with my HB pencil for the sketch, and as we all know, it comes in two shapes, which is the triangle and the rectangle. So first thing, I'm going to make my triangle. I'll make sure the diagonal lines are well spaced and proportional to each other. Then after doing that, I divide my triangle into two equal parts. Then at the bottom of the triangle, I make my diagonal line, and it looks like a kind of kite, but it's not a kite. Then moving on to the rectangular shaped object, I'm going to mark out where the rectangle falls on the triangle, then try to make my lines well spaced according to what I'm seeing in my reference picture. And once I'm done with that, I move on to intersecting the rectangle and the triangle together with the lines that are over there. That's what I'm trying to do right now. And I make sure that while I'm in the process of doing this, I continue to study my reference to make sure that it does not fall out of proportion. So that is what I'm trying to do right here, and that is the sketch we are going to focus on today. And we are done with our sketch. So simple and straightforward. And now I'm going to take my pen and make the final sketch. Before making the sketch, what I'm doing right here is trying to clean out any excess ink that might have been in the tip of the pen to avoid all these big bulgy ink stain on your drawing. So that is the main reason why you have to clean your pen tip before actually starting to use your pen for any sketch or drawing. So I'm going to use my pen here to map out where my shadings are going to be and to finalize the actual sketch of the object before moving on to shade. Then which I use my pen to finalize the actual sketch. Moving on to step 1, which is my light maps, I'm going to mark out where my light source is coming from and where my shadow is being casted. And moving on to step 2, I'll block in my midtones, and that is what I'm going to use to determine how light and how dark I want my shading process to be. So yeah, I'm starting with the midtone value, and I'm using the cross hatching and the hatching shading technique for this video tutorial. So what I'm doing here is making my midtone just with a little add pressure, not to add, just a little bit add pressure. I'll first start with a very light pressure, then increase the pressure gradually. Moving on to step 3, which is highlighting the lightest part in the object, and that is what I'm trying to achieve over here. Still using the cross hatching and the hatching technique, I'm going to shade the lightest part of the object where the light hits this object actually. That is what I'm going to shade as my step 3. And moving on to step 4, I'll start shading where my reflected light hits on the object, because the rectangular object, as the source from the light source hitting that object, it's going to reflect on the triangle. So that is what I'm trying to do. The reflected light coming from the rectangle is going to actually hit some parts of the triangle, so it's not going to be as light as the actual light subject over the rectangle side. This is going to be a little bit darker than the very light source, so that's what I'm trying to achieve over there. Then after that, the step 5 is going to be blocking in the darkest shadow, that is the cast shadow, where the light actually fall from in the object, and that is what I'm doing here. It's just a simple 5-step procedure. The first is mark out where your light source is coming from. Second one is blocking your mid-tone, and the third step is the core shadow, the mid layer, and the technique you're going to use in achieving all of this. And the fourth step is the reflected light, where the light actually reflects when it hits that object. And moving on to step number 5 is actually filling up the darkest part of the object, which are the cast shadow. So with all of this, you'll be able to understand your object and study how light plays on the object before actually moving to shade in your own practical time. Then I move on to shade the last part of the cast shadow, which is the actual darkest part in our shading tutorial today. So this comes with a very heavy pressure, and the paper is thick enough to absorb this kind of pressure. So once I'm done with this, what I'm going to do is to go over my drawing once again and try to smoothen out some parts, make them look more even and make it look more realistic. So with this, you'll be able to have a very realistic shading when you practice consistently with your drawing. And now, taking a good look at our finished drawing, you can see the actual drawing at the left and the completed one at the right. You see that there's a lot of difference. So don't say that it's very hard to learn how to shade with pen. It just depends on how determined you are to actually learn how to shade. You can see the result we have there is much more better and perfect than the actual one at the left. So if you want to know more about how to shade and how to make your drawing look very realistic, do well to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to stay tuned for the next tutorial.